All right, fact check this podcast, and I'm joined tonight once again by Tommy Salmons and Tyler Janke, and we're going to talk about the family court system and some of the stuff that fathers have to deal with, especially as it pertains to child support, visitation, your rights as a father, and sort of how all of that stuff works. This was kind of born out of the manly men being fathers conversation that we were having last week, where with both Tommy and I being divorcees and having kids and having gone through varying degrees of rigmarole with that whole situation. I've had it a lot easier than Tommy. Fortunately, most of the disagreements that my ex and I've had have been pretty easy to sort out once we kind of got into the court system. But fathers, especially in modern times, with divorce rates being as high as they are, kind of get backed into a corner where it's tough to get a lot done. And like, I'm super lucky. I'm in Indiana. Indiana is an incredibly father-friendly state, and I live in a county that has a very father-friendly, an extremely father-friendly judge on top of it already being a father-friendly state. So I was super lucky as far as all of that goes, but a lot of people aren't. So let's kind of introduce yourselves, and then let's kind of pick up the pre-show conversation that was going on some background with all of this stuff, and just sort of jump right in.
That was pre-show. I thought we were done. I'm Tommy Salmons. I'm the host of Year Zero podcast. I'm just your typical redneck living down in Southeast Texas, sweating and raising chickens and pit bulls, which a lot of people hate, but it's come to find out pit bulls are very good farm dogs.
Chickens are
Believe
super
it or not. Dude, my dogs chase hawks, man. It's fucking awesome. Like my chickens will be running around, my dogs will be laying out in the yard, and a hawk will go to land in my yard, and my dogs will chase the hawk off. Like, all right, man. Like, you can say all you want, but the history of pit bulls show that they were used as ranch dogs, and they were very effective at keeping livestock alive.
Yeah. Do you now have a rooster?
I've come to snuff the rooster.
Okay. Well done.
That's what I've done with everyone I have.
No, I do. I have okay, so I have my last roosters got killed protecting the chickens, because that's what they do, and these stubborn bastards wouldn't get out of the door and let me shut the door to the coop, so they ended up sleeping in the doorway. Both of them ended up getting killed. So I did end up getting I got a straight line breed of production blues, ended up with 3 roosters out of that. And then I got I ordered 5 Jersey Giant roosters. And so they're about 2 months old now, and they've just started going out of the coop with all their little girlfriends, and they're having a blast trying to fight my other chickens, which is hilarious to watch these little bitty things that know they're roosters, but they haven't matured to be roosters, fight these monster chickens. It's pretty fun to watch.
So I'm Tyler Janke. I'm a family law attorney. I have a Libertarian podcast review, and I have chickens. I have dogs, but I don't have pit bulls. We got 3 dogs. 2 of them are like house cats. Lazy. They've had more death on their watch than COVID. Of chickens here, we've had bobcats come over. We have a new little one. She's, I don't know, 16 pounds, part Chihuahua, some other thing, and she is all dog. She chases hawks. She handles the chickens. We had 2 roosters, and they both died too, but at my hands, because I couldn't handle them anymore. But they fended off.
They will fight you.
Yes, they did. But they also fended off the hawks as well. So you got to do what you got to do. And I'm a northerner who has adopted the South as my own. So I hope I'm well taken in here today.
See, I no longer have roosters, because the last rooster I had learned that valuable lesson about not biting the hand that feeds you.
Yeah.
That's why you carry a 2x4.
Every time I would open up the pen to take the feeders out and fill them back up, he would run up and bite the shit out of my hand. And one day I wasn't feeling it. He bit the shit out of my hand. I grabbed him by his head, picked him up, snapped his neck, set him off to the side, finished taking care of the feeding and watering and everything. And the kids are all sitting in the house, like watching this happen, because they would watch me when I go out to feed them. And they come running out. They're like, "Did you just kill that chicken?" I was like, "Yeah."
Guess what we're eating tonight.
Like, can we see it? So I had it sitting on the table in the carport, and the youngest, my stepdaughter, comes outside to see the rooster sitting there. The damn thing jumps up with its head, like neck broke, head hanging off the side, jumps up, jumps down off the table, and takes off running across the yard. So now I go chase this fucking thing down and kill it a second time. Like, it was crazy morning. So that was our last rooster experience.
Legally, double jeopardy. I don't think you would have to be, for both crimes, killing it first time and second time. So just once.
The funniest thing was when my youngest, who just graduated this year, a couple of days ago, happy graduation, Aiden. He was probably about 9-10 years old. My parents used to own the property that I own now, and my dad had chickens. And we were down here visiting, and my dad was like, "Yo, we're gonna make a gumbo tonight." And my son was like, "All right." He's like, "All right, we got to go kill a chicken. So you got to come help me." And my son's like, "Okay, what do you want me to do?" So my dad handed him a 5-gallon bucket, and he goes, "I'm gonna spin the chicken in the circle like a helicopter. When I drop that chicken, you throw this bucket on him and you sit on it." It looked like he entered the rodeo, man. That chicken. It was the funniest shit. He thought it was awesome. And I was like, "That's great. My son is as sadistic as I am." So if anybody out there can't tell, we already know each other.
Yes.
Tyler, you said you've been having bobcat problems. I wouldn't have expected that. We've had bobcat problems too. I guess in the state of California, it's probably a little harder to just step out on your back step with a rifle and take care of the bobcat problem.
Well, yeah. So I live in, I'll dox myself. I live in Folsom. It's 20 minutes or so, 20 miles east of Sacramento. So right up against the foothills. And then you've got, the big mountains here, right? The Sierra Nevadas. So the problem is there's wildlife. We've encroached onto them. So they come down, there's packs of, but I live in a little town, and they jump over a back fence. There's a community college right behind me. I can't just go firing away at this. It's not going to happen. Although I did have a video. I had a BB gun. Okay. So I came out there one morning, this giant bobcat is jumping out, and I shoot it, and it jumps over the fence. It's whatever. I mean, you got to do what you got to do. But like I said, the dogs haven't been doing their job.
Yeah, I don't have bobcats out here. I mean, I'm sure there are some near me, but I haven't seen any on the property. This year I've been having a lot of issues with coyotes. They got 8 of my female ducks, like just coyotes. I've set out some traps, and them little sons of bitches are slick, man. Like, I caught raccoons, but I ain't got no damn coyotes. Just slick little shits, man. And my dogs want to fight them, and I'm like, yeah, those things are wild. There's 3 of them. There's 2 of you. I'm not sure you two, like, could, as big as you are, could handle yourself. I just don't trust it. So it's like, if it came down to it, it would be 3-on-3, because I'd go out there, go fisticuffs with a coyote. Yeah. I don't give a shit.
More efficient ways to take care of coyotes.
There are.
Anyway,
it's just catching them out here. Because where they're at and where they're wandering through the property, I have very limited sight to this area, and so I'll see them. I'll grab a rifle and I'll get on the back porch, and by the time I get out there, they're already in a place where it's so wooded I can't get a clear shot. So it's really just logistic. Like, I can't deal with them, and my dogs want to fight them, and I'm like, no, stay the fuck away from them. Even though I did have a dog at one point in time, I had a Presa Canario when I lived out in Fulshire, and this dog at 8 months old was already 120 pounds, and she would go out and hunt coyotes, and come back with parts of coyote in her mouth at the end of the day. Like, she was just a beast, though. Like, I don't know what to tell you. She was a monster. And I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to let Boogie and Butters with their little baby selves go try to fight coyotes, man. They're a bunch of pussies.
So as you can tell, tonight's topic is animal control. And
yes, it literally is the same thing as family law.
All right, so
getting rid of coyotes is like getting rid of an ex-wife.
Right.
No, I'm not going to comment on that. Son is right in the other room.
Wait, no, it's got to be like wolves, because did they call female wolves bitches? I mean, because that's the only way we're going to get this
all
analogy.
Female dogs were bitches.
Right. So you got to go with that concept.
Dogs.
Right. All right. Never mind. Justin, please take over.
So the idea, the concept of making sure that you are an active part of your children's lives as a father came up last week. And, in some situations that is more difficult than others. So that got Tommy on the thing, because he had dealt with specific situations where he wasn't given access to his kids for varying reasons, and so that brings up the topic of, like, why does that happen in the family court system? Like, maybe what are some of the ways that as a father you can be able to fight that effectively, where that you can have a influence and a part in your kids' lives. So let's kind of, I guess, kind of pick up on some of the backstory of where some of this stuff was coming from, with based out of the conversation last week, and then we'll kind of take it forward from there.
Okay, yeah. So in my situation, what was going on is I had been in the military, and then I'd gotten out of the military. And when I got out of the military, I couldn't find a job. So I was out of work for like 8 months. So then I fall behind on child support. Well, at this time, she's going to court and she's telling judges that I have a drinking problem, that I'm this, that I'm that I'm abusive, all these things. And I don't have the access to engage in these processes because I don't have the money to, like, travel to the town she's at and interact in the courts and defend myself. Right.
Were you in the military when this was happening, or you were already out?
It was kind of like, it kind of staggered when I was in and out. It was both and.
Okay. Were you stationed somewhere?
It started when I was in Fort Bragg, and it ended once I had gotten out.
And were you active duty?
I was, when I was at Bragg, I was active duty and then I got.
And I don't mean to derail you. I don't mean to derail you at all, but there are issues of staying court processes if you're, like, involved in, you're over in Iraq actually hunting or doing whatever we're doing there.
Well, I wasn't deployed.
Okay.
Part of the reason
active duty, there's still some issues. I'll let you go, but I mean, this all comes back to where I'm going to point to, which is knowing what you need to know to make sure you're always protected. So that might have been an issue that you could have dealt with. Anyway, sorry, go ahead, Tommy.
No, you're fine. You're fine, because I'm sure there are things that you could tell me now that I didn't know then that would have helped me at the time, that, like, how was I supposed to know? Because whenever I was in the military, she filed for divorce. All these things were going on. Like, JAG refused to help. They will not engage in family law. Yeah. JAG will not help you. And so if you're military, like, you're screwed on that front. You have to go out and you have to get civilian attorneys. And how do you figure out how to do that? Right. And so I ended up getting discharged because she had let property get repossessed and things of that nature. So we had land foreclosed on and this, that, and the other, because she stopped paying on it. So they gave me a choice. You can stay here while your unit deploys, or you can be discharged. What do you want to do? And I was like, well, I don't want to stay here with all the injured people while my unit deploys. So just get me out of here so I can go try to handle my business. Right. And so I got out, moved to Austin, in with my parents. And during that period of time, the divorce proceedings went through and I did not go. I couldn't afford to go. I had no way of going. I wasn't earning money. I didn't have a job. Finally, I get myself down to Houston after the divorce proceedings. She had it situated to where I had to get, my visitation was supposed to be watched over, basically.
Supervised.
Yeah, supervised. That's the word. I kept wanting to say observed. I'm like, yeah, it's being observed.
Same idea.
Yeah. So supervised visitation. And I'm like, okay, how do I deal with this? How do I fight this? So I get in touch with an attorney and they're telling me, oh yeah, well, you need $3,000 retainer. Okay. Well, now here I am. I'm falling behind on child support by the day. I can't find a job. And when I do find a job, I'm working diligently to get caught back up on child support, which what they don't tell you is if you fall behind 8 months on child support, it's going to take you 10 years to catch up on it.
And they can take your driver's license.
They can. And they also, and you and I have had this conversation before, they also brought me into the district attorney's office and asked her, do you want to put him in jail because he's not paying child support? Right. She's like, no, he's paying it now, so it's all good. I was like, gee, what the hell is this? Why does this 20-year-old woman have that kind of influence over my life?
See, that's where being so it's in Indiana's state constitution. I can't remember the exact, at the time when I was going through the shit in court, I had it memorized. I went through all of my case stuff and I let my lawyer go because he was the reason that we were in court to begin with, because he fucked up stuff in the divorce, like in the divorce filing and everything. So I ended up cutting him loose because he was terrible. Like he had not done a good job to begin with. And at every turn he was making it worse. So I just got rid of him. I went through all of the case stuff and tried to figure out what the fuck was going on. And then I was going to hire a lawyer, and I went and met with him. I sat down with him and I laid it all out. And I was like, look, this is what's been happening. This is what has happened. This is where we are now. This is what she's trying to do. Like, this is everything that I've got. I just need to know where I need to go. And he said, pay me a $250 consultation fee, and this is what you're going to do. He said, if they actually do try to send you to jail, call me immediately. He said, make me your call, because they legally cannot do this in the state of Indiana, because my child support was so much higher than what my income was. Like, there was literally no way that I could pay it. So that, Indiana has a statute that if it's something unreasonable like that, like an unreasonable debt, you can't be jailed for an inability to pay an unreasonable debt, and that would fall under that statute. So like I had the out on that, and of course I got even more lucky in having a very father-friendly judge that looked at it and was like, yeah, this is ridiculous. There's no way you could ever pay this. And so ended up getting it taken care of. But yeah, mine was trying to have me thrown in jail for 30 days, which it was cool. My employer was like, well, if you go to jail, just, let us know and your job will be here for you when you get back. Like, we'll figure something out. Like, well, I appreciate that.
Well, that was the argument I kept having with the court system. Was they're like, yeah, your child support payments are 25% of your income, and I'm like, I'm unemployed. My income is zero. It's like, so how do you configure $1,000 or $700, $800 out of? I'm making nothing at the moment. Like, I don't understand. But they had configured it out of past incomes that I had made, right? And so what happened was I eventually did get work. I eventually started working, and I was working regularly. It just took a while. It was in the middle of a recession in 2001. It was the Clinton recession that took place. It was a pain in the ass. It took me about 8 months to find work. I found work. I started working regularly. I hadn't been unemployed since. But it's just one of those things. You fall into this little category, and they're like, she could withhold, but here's the part that really bugged me Like I'd gone through all the proceedings. I had made sure I was like in touch with the attorney general and doing all this stuff to make sure that I'm catching up on paying the child support. Cause it's not that I didn't want to pay. It was just, I was incapable of paying at a point in time. So once I got to the point where I could start paying again and I could get caught up, then and continue and make it a normalcy in paying extra, I'm paying $80 extra a month, $100 extra a month, whatever it was, in order to catch up on the back child support. They had no mechanisms to ensure that my visitation was being applied properly. And so when I would try to argue with them about this, they would tell me to call another branch of the family services office. When I would call that branch, they would say, oh, well, you need to get in touch with an attorney in order to apply the proper paperwork in order to get your visitation rights. I would get in touch with a family attorney and they were like, well, we need a $3,000 retainer to even look at your case. And we can't guarantee we would even take it. So now I'm in a situation where she has the attorney general working on her side, constantly on my ass all the time for money. And I have nobody backing me in order to get the rights of a father to have visitation with my children. So what choice did I have other than to try to work with her as best as I could, which meant that I had to ask her permission every other week. Can I see my kids this week? Can I see my kids? When can I see my kids? And I would ask her permission. And if they had a baseball game or if they had a soccer game or if they had church scheduled or something like that, I didn't get to see them. It was just out of my hands. I had nothing. I had nowhere to go, no one to turn to, no one to help me with this because I didn't have the ability to pay the retainer to secure the attorney to look at the case and take my side and arbitrate on my behalf.
Lot there. So what you're describing to me is I see it all the time. Now, I would love, and I do often get hosed in taking clients that aren't paying me or whatnot. And there's a lot of time, but we're doing a service. So I understand he wants some money. It's all there, but let's take that aside. Everyone understands that, you've got to, there's just so much, Tommy. So there's two factions you can see with a family court. Let's just take a custody situation. The divorce has been done. Now it's just child support and child custody. And those can be two separate things. If they go under and use the Department of Child Support Services as an example, then they're always going to be somewhat separate. Or if you just file a motion in court and all you say is you check the box for child support and then you go in there and you're complaining about custody, the court's going to say, what's the court order for custody, or what are you actually doing? But we're not going to make any changes. That's why they're telling you go file something else. And by the way, that's good in some respects, because if I file a motion and I'm like, I'm only there for child custody and this bitch mom is complaining about support, you're like, go file your own motion. I don't even want to talk about it, and you shouldn't have to. So that's the reason of the differences here. Now, what I will say, though, is those two should be separate, because it should, and in California, it definitely is the case where it's in the family code that you don't get to say, dad doesn't have enough money, therefore he's not going to get any custody, right? You can't use the economic situation of the parties to put that into perspective, or to make determinations. Mom gets remarried to some guy that has a job and she's not working. Okay, well, what they typically say is you still have to work and support your child. You can't divest yourself in your child. So there should be some of that there. They should have taken your new income into account. There's a lot of little things back and forth, but you can't have this incentive for custody based on support, or support based on custody, but it always is. And here's the dirty little part of it. We'll get into two federal situations if you want to. But the first one is what's called Title 4D. Okay, it's the Social Security Act. And they fund the states it started with just basic welfare, kind of a good objective. I don't think so, but you can say it was at the time. Back when that law was passed, you had the typical situation where, dad's working, mom's not, they get divorced. Now she has no ability to get any money. He maybe isn't doing it. So they put it out to the states. They set up the Department of Child Support Services, and now they can go and they can do collections. They can find the parties for you, What they also do now is if one of those parties is on public assistance and they're trying to get, insurance for their kid, DCSS jumps in the case, and they then, put a suit against the other party, the payor, and they pay and they help basically collect money for the state, the county, reimburse them. The big problem you have with a lot of this, though, it's gone out of control, and those states, and you look at the Title IV of the Social Security Act, it is explicit in there that the states get reimbursed, up to 66 cents on the dollar, not for collections, but for attempts. So so what that really does is it means, hey, the more that the states can have employees to work for this, the more we get reimbursed, because their job is to try to get collections. They don't have to actually collect. So it's now you're looking at the Department of Child Support Services, which is perpetuating a lot of problems. And the biggest problem that goes along with this, Justin said Indiana is friendly to fathers. For the most part, you can look at the presumption, and what it would mean is if you get divorced or if you have a custody issue and you want to have custody, the state, as in California, is this way. There's a presumption of equal child custody, That's the presumption. Now you can overcome that. Dad's a drunk. That's what she's saying about you, Tommy, or whatnot. There's other issues. And now it starts chipping away. But the immediate is a 50-50. I mean, I have a list. I went through this morning because I thought this would be kind of interesting here, of all these states that have turned down and had bills, trying to pass through their state legislature to have a 50-50 presumption. And they're just turned down all the time. Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Connecticut, Florida, Illinois, Georgia, Iowa, Oklahoma, Kansas, Kentucky, Minnesota, Missouri, New Hampshire, Texas, South Dakota, South Carolina, Virginia, Wisconsin, Wyoming. A lot of these are, what you would consider Republican type states, and they are doing a disservice. And the reason why, if you ever look into any of these and they talk about it when they're trying to pass the bills, it's because they go, we wouldn't get as much money from the state if we did this. So, Tommy, a lot of your problems are directly pointed at your state legislature themselves. And I think this is a lot of problems people don't understand as they complain and they do whatever. Dad's rights of this and that. And they're like, hey, how about those people out there in your state house that are causing a lot of these problems? And, they can do the whole thing, which is you saw this with, I think it was Nevada, back in the days when they wanted a speed limit higher than 55. So the federal government says, well, then we're not going to give you your federal money for highways. And they're like, fine. Now, they're like the only state that would push back. But these states could do this. They just wouldn't get a lot of this funding, and then they can make their own rules and whatnot for custody. They wouldn't have to have this Department of Child Support Services that's tied to the Fed. That's one big issue. Any questions or comments there? I know it's kind of a bit.
No, I mean, I think you're right. It's like we were talking about earlier. A lot of this boils down to the states and the way that the states regulate this, and that it's not this broad spectrum, and that you're not going to run into the same issues in every state. Texas is very friendly to the mother, right? And they pride themselves on that. And to some degree, I guess it's okay. But if she's in there saying, hey, this dude's a drunk and abusive, and they're going, well, what evidence? They don't ever ask her, what evidence do you have of this? They never ask. They just, okay, that's what you say. That's what it is.
Well, like you mentioned, Kentucky being on that list, like we had separated at one time when we were living in Kentucky, and then we kind of mended things and got back together for a couple years, and then we moved to Indiana before we ended up ultimately getting divorced. But like when we were doing the separation in Kentucky, holy fuck, like Kentucky is bad. Like if you're a dad, you may as well just bend over and let them stick it to you, because that's like either you're going to take it willingly or they're going to force it in there, but you're getting fucked. Like
I will say they did pass a 50-50 presumption in it looks like 2018. They did Bevin signed it through. So they
but they say
for
that
as much as they hated that motherfucker, Bevin was actually a really good governor. He was like he was over the top with some of his rhetoric and the way he talked, and people didn't like that because he said mean things. But man, that dude was he was a good governor. I'm glad to hear that they passed something like that, because man, like whenever we were going through that back in 2011 was when we were doing it, and holy shit, like I mean, at least a small part of the deciding factor in getting back together was there's no way I can afford to get divorced in the state of Kentucky with the way their laws are.
I don't see. I have an issue with that 50-50 presumption. That's exactly what my divorce paperwork said. It said joint custody.
But joint custody, this is the problem. So in our state constitution, and then California, that is, which pushes it out to the family code, it says in there, and it's a definition of what joint custody is. And that joint custody is
you got to share a joint to have custody.
It's
no, that's not what I meant.
Well, yeah, that might get you on that list. No, it's explicit about that being an equal sharing time. Texas doesn't have that. So their joint custody doesn't actually mean 50-50. That's what I'm saying. So they can say joint custody.
But that's what I'm saying. There's this kind of like propagandistic idea that they write these things up and they get fathers to agree like, oh, okay, well, at least I get joint custody. And then it's like, yeah, your joint custody includes that you got to hang out with your ex-in-laws for 3 hours in order to play t-ball with your son, or something like that. It's like, this isn't joint custody. What the hell is this bullshit? Like, why are you trying to pull the wool over my eyes? And how can I fight back against this? Because I have this paperwork here that says, this divorce decree that says joint custody. I pay this much child support. I'm paying the child support. I'm catching up on back child support, but I'm not getting my custody. Yeah. And then I call them and I say, look, this divorce decree says this. And the AG says, yeah, you have to hire an attorney for that. Right. Like, what the fuck? You call me once a month making sure I'm still paying that back child support, don't you, you fucking cunt?
Well, someone's doing fine with still anger. Look,
it's just so frustrating. It's like, how do you maneuver this shit?
Well, and you're exactly right. So let's say you come to me, right? And you're like, there's two scenarios. Tommy and Justin both come to me, okay? Justin comes and says, look, I have a court order for custody. It says I get the kids X, Y, and Z times, okay? And she's not following it. Okay, so we're going to go to court and we're going to file maybe a motion for a contempt that she's out. Okay, that's fine. What are they going to do there? Oh, you need to do this, and they're not going to put her in jail. It's hard to get any kind of court to really enforce something like that. And they do kind of. The other one, Tommy comes and says, she owes me money, right? Or I've overpaid or something like that. A money one is so easy because it's just, here's the dollars, here's what the order said to do, and it's very simple. And the other one is always excuses. Now, just to break that out to you, there's courts of equity and courts of law, okay? You could kind of understand immediately what that means. Courts of law is just, here's the rule, here's what it means, and here's what you got to follow. Courts of equity are more like, does it make sense? Is it fair? And family courts are a blend of those. So that's a problem that people don't often understand is they'll come out of court and they'll say, hey, the judge made this ruling. It was, he just made a snap judgment. And I'm like, okay, that's a permissible thing he can do. He's not, held to the, so that some of them are law and some of them are equity. And you need to know, and this is part of the whole thing here is you got to kind of take an investment with your child and your situation and understand that and dig into it so that you are aware of, in California, they have all these, what's called judicial council forms. It's like checkbox stuff to actually follow your motions and do whatever, because they say about 80% of the time, someone who goes through family court is unrepresented at some point or another. So they try to make it easier. And if you're just in civil court, you're doing pleadings, you're doing all kinds of different stuff. It's more difficult for just an unrepresented person. So, for this state, they at least try this way that you can get into court and maybe, be a little bit more informed. And I think that's a big problem that some people don't have. And Tommy, I mean, you're just, look, family court for support, you get stuck with arrears. It's 10% per annum for an interest. That's much better, especially at this inflation. No one gets a CD anymore of, point something. I mean, you don't get interest rates anymore. I've had clients actually say, there's an arrears amount that this guy owes, and the receiving party will say, you know what, I'll just take, monthly payments on this because I'm going to end up more overall because the interest just keeps racking it up. So, that's
well, you know what else they do? What else they do to kind of get you on that is they'll schedule you, and they'll say, okay, what we'll do is we'll take your child support out of your check every week, every 2 weeks, whatever, however you get paid, right? Yeah, we'll garnish your wages. But here's how they fuck you, at least in Texas. I found this out the hard way. I had no idea this was going on until I realized I had caught up all my child support. I had paid up on everything. I had purchased my house, and then I went and did a credit check in order to buy a car or a tractor. And no, I didn't have a lien.
Oh, okay, good.
It was my credit score came back under 600. And I was like, why is my credit score under 600? And they were like, oh, because you're back child support. I was like, dude, I'm not back on child support. I've paid all my child support. So I called the attorney general's office, and I'm on the phone with the attorney general's office. And they said, oh yeah, child support's due on the first of the month. Anything you don't pay on the first of the month counts against your credit score.
So all that.
So just y'all are the ones who made the schedule to garnish my wages. I didn't volunteer that. That was your idea. So
Indiana charges
immediately, as soon as I don't make the entire month payment on the first, I'm behind, and it goes against my credit score.
Indiana does I have mine set up as a wage garnishment. It's just easier that way. Plus, it's all tracked through the court. Like I did it just like writing her a check every week for the longest time, and apparently none of that is traceable through the court system. Like
you have to send it to the child support system so they can take money out of it before they send it to her.
Yeah. So anyway, I just set it up as a garnishment. Well, apparently the state of Indiana charges you an annual fee to take your money out of your paycheck.
Yep.
So and they send you a bill every year. I have yet to pay one of those. The bill keeps going up. I assume at some point they'll either garnish my wages or get pissed off at me and send me a strongly worded letter or something. I'm like, I'm not fucking giving you. I don't give a shit that it is only $50. Like, I'm not giving you $50 a year to take my money from me. Like, just you're already taking my money. Fuck you.
Oh, you're lucky because in Texas they take it as part of the garnishment originally. So it's automatically, like, I think it's like $2 or $3 of the child support that you're paying goes straight to the government. And then if you're behind, like Tyler said, if you're behind, then it's 10% additional fees. And I even called them on that one time. I was like, the reason whenever that's what brought that to my mind, that you're behind automatically at the beginning of the month. I said, the reason y'all do this is because you get 10% more every time I have to pay in order to catch up at the end of the month. And they're like, oh, no, it's nothing like that. It's like 1%, 2%. Like, bullshit, man. I'm not stupid. I know what y'all are doing here.
By the way, that. Oh, go ahead.
Go. No.
I was just going to say that 10% goes to the other party. But what is interesting is if they are on public assistance, at least here in California, and I think it's pretty much this way everywhere, the county is trying to get paid back. So there's a pass through. So when they see this number, I've been to court and the other party is like, oh, great, I get all this money for child support. And then they don't, because the county sucks it out because you're already getting money. So why you don't get all this support? So the county takes almost your whole child support and then sends just a little bit of pass through to the other party. So that's sometimes funny, You're like, well, I don't know, but
I don't know. It's just the whole system is set up in such a way that it's just for the government to garner more wages off of you. Yeah. And they're just looking for a way to stretch more money. And so what they figured is the way to do that is to set the mom and dad against each other in order to just suck more wages out of the people. And it just pisses me off, man. It's such a crock the way they do it. You're like, come on, man. Like, I could have gone to, arbitration with this woman and fucking figured something out better for both of us than whatever the hell y'all have concocted in your minds.
You talked about trying to take away your license and stuff like that. I actually found the loophole to that. If your license is already invalid, they can't take it away. That was not intentional, but I had an invalid driver's license for 3 years because of some other dumb bullshit that the state kept fucking me over on. And so when I was, it was, God, 2.5 years that we fought the support thing in court. And so again, and this was like, my lawyer advised that while we were fighting it, just pay a certain minimum every week and don't pay anything else. Well, then that ended up putting me like $12,000 behind by the time the whole thing got through court and everything, and all of the agreements were made and everything kind of shook out. So that kind of screwed me on the tail end. But somewhere during the midst of that process, they tried to take my license away. It was already invalid because I had gotten a speeding ticket at some point, and I just paid the ticket. Like, there was nothing, the ticket didn't say anything about like a driver's ed course or anything like that. It was, I got a ticket. It said, you can pay the ticket online. I paid the ticket online and moved on with life. And then like 6 months later, I found out my license is invalid because I was supposed to do this driver's ed course thing that they never told me about. So then I go do the driver's ed course thing. And then apparently there was some fee that I was also supposed to pay, which I don't find out about the fee for another like 18 months. So then I paid that fee. And then 3 months later, I found out that there's another fee. So then I have to go through. So it was like literally 2.5 years that I didn't have a valid driver's license because the state just kept fucking me over and over and over on like more fees and bullshit that they didn't tell me about up front. They'd wait until I like find out later on that my license is still invalid, even though I thought I fixed this problem 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's a money laundering scheme, man.
I mean, and that's how the child support thing is too.
Right. Yeah.
It's a money laundering scheme for the state, and at least for the state. I don't know to what extent the local government gets involved in it, but yeah.
Well, the state gets reimbursed, and then they pay the counties if they have their whatever. The arrears, if you have arrears, by the way, they can levy your bank account. And I know in the way it's structured here in California, there's two ways. You're in compliance, you're paying the arrears, or you're non-compliant, you're not even paying the arrears. And if you're non-compliant, they can go just reach into your bank, sweep it at any point, and they'll take everything. If it's compliant, they'll take up to, I think, $3,000. So a lot of these people, they don't even have that money anyway. So it is taking everything. Then the other problem you have is what you've said. If you're trying like you guys are here, you're working, maybe you're a commercial driver, and then they're going to go after your license. That's literally doing everything to take your possibility of making money away from you. It's just, it's absolutely insane. And but then you've also, so I have on the other side too, I have 2 kids we blended families. So I had 2 of my own. I got divorced and I remarried, and she had 2 kids. And so they're mine, but their dad's not even anywhere in the picture. And, we never have taken him back to court to change the support. He pays, it's supposed to be like, I don't know, something really low, but he never pays anything. So every once in a while we just get a little bit of snippet or something put into the account, when COVID was happening, because he works off the books. So, he tries to be sneaky. So there's dirtbags like that out there. And I wish it's like the homeless thing where someone's truly in dire need and you want to give them money, but likely it's a meth addict, right? So how do you take these 2 types of scenarios? You guys, good guys, trying to do your best, and you're getting screwed over by the system. But, part of that problem is, one, the legislature is doing what it's doing. And then these deadbeats that make it so that everyone involved in there, I mean, if you go into court with me, there's just so many crappy people on both sides. And so, 2 of my good friends work for Department of Child Support Services, and they've made comments about how, horrible men are. And I'm like, I know you see it on a daily basis, but there are good people out there too. So it's a weird situation.
Yeah, I just think it's odd that if a dad is making payments and he's working and struggling and fighting in order to get caught up if he did fall behind, and if he's actually making this effort, and this effort is being like attempted, and it's been happening 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, 2 years, 3 years, and it's constant, and you never see the repeat of the mistakes or whatever happened, the bad luck, however you want to say it, of early on in the divorce, then like some of that should be taken into account. And if the attorney general is going to go after the father for being 8 months behind on child support, I would judge to say that there should be some kind of recompense for the father to go after the mother for not letting the dad see the children for 2 years. Right.
Yeah.
Like,
So
if I'm paying the child support, like you're coming after me, I'm paying it. Like, at least let me see my kids. Like that's really all that dads really want, is that that engagement, that relationship with their children. I don't mind paying, like, whatever you would have told me to pay, I would have paid it. I didn't care about that. I just wanted the time to see my kids. And I didn't want to give this woman who obviously had some issue with me the power above me to stop me from doing that. And you're telling me the only way I can fight that is to spend money I don't have, because it's all coming out in child support.
That's the nice thing in Indiana is, and whenever you file for divorce, before the divorce is finalized, there's a step that you have to go to I can't remember what it's called exactly, but it's more like a divorce parents class. Like, you have to go do this full day class, and they go through like all of the stuff about you're getting divorced. Here's what's next. And one of the things that they talk about in that is, like, you cannot withhold visitation time because of a support issue. That is straight up off the table. If you are not letting your baby daddy see the kids because he's behind on his support, you can be held in contempt, and then you can get in trouble. So don't do, like, they very specifically tell the mothers, like, don't fucking do this, because he can take you to court and you will get in a lot of trouble for this. So that's the nice thing about Indiana with that, is like, I never had to worry about anything like that, which, I mean, we were still amenable and talked during the whole fighting that out with the support stuff anyway. But it, I never had to worry about that. The thing that screwed me over was the way our custody situation was worded. It was each parent has the children for 7 out of every 14 days. So, like, the way we had it set up initially was she had them Monday, Tuesday, I had them Wednesday, Thursday, and then we split Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I would have them this Friday, Saturday, Sunday. She'd have them next Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So, that was the way we did it for the longest time. And at one point, she wasn't letting me get them on my days. She was messing with the schedule for different reasons. It was during COVID and all that bullshit. And so I tried to call, like, the sheriff's office. I'm like, look, she's not letting me have my kids. Like, I'm supposed to have my kids on these days. And they said, well, your divorce decree doesn't say that you get the kids on these days. It says you get them 7 out of every 14 days. So if 14 days pass and you haven't had them for 7 of those 14 days, then we can do something. But as of right now, like, you're just shit out of luck. I'm like, all right, we're taking this shit back to court and getting it, like, nailed down in concrete. Like, these are the days that I have them. I'm not getting fucked over by this again. And we ended up coming to agreements on stuff, and we never had to go back to court on that. And it was like, over the last 2-3 years, everything has been very agreeable, surprisingly so in some instances, but it's been a good situation. But man, the early goings of things, it was not so much.
I think the important thing here is Justin and I both have our own circumstances and our own experiences, and people are kind of becoming aware of what can happen with these circumstances.
Yeah.
But the reason to have, like, you on, Tyler, and to talk about these things with you is so that you could maybe give, like, some sort of guidance ahead of time, so that people can, like, if it's coming to, your marriage is coming to an end and you have children and you know that you're about to go through these custody battles, how do you maneuver that? How do you prepare yourself for that?
Yeah. Thank you for the opening. And by the way, I have it's substack.com, Tyler Janke. And one of I did an article because I'm kind of trying to do some of this, and it was all really about preparing yourself for this type of thing. Men just don't, because I went on with Josh Smith, I mean, Andy always complains about stuff, you know, you guys, and I get it. And I hear this all the time. And, you know, without knowing all the details of everything, it's hard for me to just say, here, you know, whatever, or here's the mistakes. I'll say, Justin, what you did there was perfect. Saying, no, we're going to solidify this up. Look, a lot of times, like my ex-wife and I, we've never gone to court. I mean, we got a divorce, you know, filed an agreement, and my kids are all emancipated now as of next weekend. And so my daughter graduates high school. That's what I'm saying. And we didn't ever have to go back to court. We can make agreements. Now that doesn't work with everybody. Some people, you need to be 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's got to be so specific, and you need that to protect yourself. So if that's not happening, you need to understand this other person. You know, I get cases sometimes where it starts out with one of the wife files against the husband, a domestic violence restraining order, says he did all kinds of vile things. And then next thing you know, they're like, oh, we've kind of worked it out. And I'm like, this is someone who was willing to say in public to an official that you did vile things, and now you're going to work things out. That's going to go well. Right? That's just,
right. Yeah.
You're insane, but good luck to you. Okay. So with this in mind, there's things you need to prepare. Men don't prepare for litigation. You're out working, you're doing whatever. You come home, the wife's taking care of things. Next thing you know, you're in this position where you've got to go to court and understand all these things we've been talking about. And so, you know, maybe get an attorney right away, or talk to one. You know, you can call for consults. I give free 30-minute consults out there, which is probably ridiculous. But I end up giving out information. Next thing you know, someone comes back 6 months later and they want to hire me. That's perfectly fine. So sometimes I'm just like helping people out.
Oh, that $250 was the best money I ever spent.
Yeah.
For just a 20-minute conversation with that dude to have him tell me, this is your course of action for what you've shown me. Like, you don't need to hire me. You pay me $250. This is what you're going to go do. And it worked out perfectly. Like, yeah, I mean, there are plenty of lawyers that will do, you know, 250 was a little high for around here, but they were widely considered like the best around here. And I was just trying to make sure I didn't go to fucking jail. So, so I was looking for, you know, something good. But I also had the very nice benefit of my grandmother is just rolling in it, and I'm her favorite grandchild. So it was basically a situation of like, whatever you need to do, I've got you back. I've got your back. So I didn't really have to worry about anything as far as the legal fees went either. But like for people who do have to, like I said, 250 around here, that was very high for the consult. A lot of them around here do it for like 75 or 100, and it, you know, typically they're worth it.
Yeah, and it could be. Or there's forums, you know, there's Google. You can find out all kinds of stuff online to try to help you through some of these, or to give you some ideas. Anyway, so the guys don't prepare for litigation. That's the biggest problem. They go to court and they don't, you know, haven't taken screenshots of text, those kind of things. So that, you know, there's all kinds of things that they can do. One of the biggest things that I try to profess out there, and Tommy, you and I and Patrick talked about this, which is, you know, not to be a victim in your own life, especially with this stuff, because it then gives you an excuse to kind of rest on those things and just say, oh, I'm a man, I'm a victim of this situation. When, you know, like, if I was going to be going through, and I'm looking at all these states with their presumption, you know, 50-50, California sucks, but I think I would rather live here under some tyranny and be able to see my kids every week than not. And so, you know, sometimes you have to make those kind of rash decisions of whatever it is. But, you know, this is the great thing about talking to you guys and kind of in this sphere is trying to figure out some of the best things. Because I see it, and sometimes I'm so deep in the process that, you know, you're just helping this client, you're doing this, that I'm not really seeing what solutions can be to some of this stuff. And honestly, I'm still looking for some. So.
Yeah. And, you know, it's just really frustrating because I know how difficult this whole process was for the last 20 years with me and my children, and what it's done to our relationships and how difficult those relationships are. And I know there are other guys out there doing this and dealing with it, and they don't know what to do, and they don't know where to turn. And it breaks their heart, and it makes them angry, and all of these things. And it's really frustrating because it's so lopsided the way these laws are written.
Yeah. You know, and some of this, if you know, this is maybe not the quite the right venue, but you think of how, when we start out with family law, what's the jurisdiction, or how do you have as a parent, what are your rights? And, that leads you down this rabbit hole of 14th Amendment, 9th Amendment, unenumerated substantive due process, which really, and you can say, do you really want to have, like we just saw with the Dobbs case, that, they're basically eliminating, in a sense, some of these unenumerated rights to the states. And so do we care enough? Would we rather have our state in charge of all this? Do we really want the federal government to be part of this? So, there's some aspects of that. We can go down some deep rabbit holes. I don't know that we have time to break that down, but, that's kind of an interesting part as well.
Become intimately familiar with your state constitution as well, because there are some things that are involved in the state constitution that point, like like the one I was talking about with the state cannot jail you for a outrageous fee that you have no ability to pay. And I can't remember what that, it's like Amendment 10 or 10.2 or something. But anyway, like becoming intimately familiar with your own state's constitution and understanding what's in there. I guess I kind of approached the divorce thing a little bit differently than a typical guy does. I spent years in project management. So like having all of, and having to, in the project management process, justify the ROI and expenses and everything for the project. Because what I was putting together like multi-million-dollar projects and big rebuilds and grain elevators and stuff like that. So like having to provide all of the documentation and evidence and be able to justify, like, why do we need to tear this out and put all of this new shit in? So when I went into my divorce process, especially as soon as I figured out that my lawyer was just completely fucking useless, that's when I really started digging and finding everything that I could, and like just cataloging it all. And I, building a book of this is what I know, this is what I don't know, and this is what I need to ask somebody about so that I can figure out how to get through this. Being diligent and trying to understand what the system is, how it works, especially in your state. I'm not gonna lie, I deliberately put off proceedings a couple times because the judge who I was going to get was not as father friendly as one of the others. So I would deliberately delay until I could get the one that I wanted. It was not that hard, and she was generally agreeable to it. Like, she didn't realize what I was doing because she didn't research the judges in the area the way I did. So, it was one of those things that I was able to manipulate things to a certain extent to make sure that I was in a situation to succeed when it did get into the judge's hands. So being diligent about that stuff. I mean, knowing who the judges are in the area and who's going to be on the bench that day. I mean, that can make all the difference in the world.
Yeah, I do a thing. I primarily practice in 3 counties, and sometimes I'll take some in others. But people will call, and I'll just like, what county? That's kind of the first question I ask, and then a lot of times I'm like, just go find someone local there, because I could walk into mine and I know these judges, and I'm like, oh, and that's the best thing attorneys, maybe you can ask them, do you practice in this county? Do you know these judges? Because then they can give you a prediction that what they think is the best argument, or like outcome that you're going to have. The best thing an attorney can be doing is giving you very good outcomes that they think are going to happen, because the worst thing for me as an attorney is like, oh yeah, we're going to win this, and then you don't, right? That you'd rather say, you are up against it. Here's the reality, and here's what's going to happen in court. And then they come out and it's exactly like you said. Suddenly you have, all kinds of authority for them of advice, which, you should be doing. Anyway, so those are aspects. And Justin, what you said, it reminds me, I have clients that come in, for the most part, they'll do a thing where they want 50-50 custody. And so you ask them, man, what does that look like for you? And he's like, I don't know, at 50-50. And it's like, well, your job. You should know these kids' schedule, and you should know her schedule to some extent. You need to figure it out, because you don't want to go into court. I've had a guy, no offense to long haul truck drivers, but I want 50-50. Well, he's a long haul truck driver out of town almost the entire month. Yeah. How is that going to work? That doesn't work. And then you look dumb. As a matter of fact, now it's all about money, because that's really why you want 50. So anyway.
it's funny you said that about we have 3 different judges that cover family law in that courthouse. One of them is very mother friendly, one of them is very father friendly, and the other one is kind of, it just depends on the case. Like he's very diligent about what does the case say. So, and like I figured that out just by like it's all public record. Like
Yeah.
I can pull up our county and filter it by divorce proceedings and just look at these, like the different judges and the way that they rule on stuff. Like that was how I figured it out, and that was how I like just kind of belayed it until I could get in front of the right one.
Go sit in court, listen to it. You know, for the most part, a lot of those proceedings are going to be public too.
Mm.
So yeah, there are a lot of tools available for guys who are, like Tommy might not have had as much of an opportunity with early 2000s. Online was still kind of, you know.
Well, part of it was I was young. I was
Yeah.
right. I was 22, 23 years old. Right. And so I was really young. I didn't understand what was going on. The only place I knew to turn for help, because I was in the military, I turned to JAG, and they basically told me I was fucked.
Yeah.
And I was like, where do I go? I don't know what to do. Right. And so I basically maneuvered myself in a way to get like where I was able to get out of the military through some of her fucking acts. And I was like, hey, maybe I can maneuver this and leverage myself and get out of the military and get some help that way. But I was never able to get any help because I didn't have any money to do anything, and I couldn't get a job. And so there were all these things that were acting against me. Again, like you said, I didn't even look at the internet until 2012. So if that tells you anything about the life I lived, it was all like, hey, yeah, like whatever I'm doing out here with my hands, that's what matters. So the internet didn't even exist to me until 2012. And so, yeah, it was just, I was totally lost and just didn't have a clue what to do.
And by the way, so that support stuff goes, at least the way most of it is like this in most states that I've kind of looked through, is your percentage of time with the kids and then your income. So, you know, if you're down at 20% or you only see them on the weekends and it's, 5-10%, that's going to be, and you make more than her, you're going to be really punished for, the more kids you have, the worse it becomes. So that's one aspect of it. And, look, fathers want to spend time with their kids. That's perfectly fine and normal, as you should. But then, you've got this burden of income that based off of custody time. So that's also difficult as well. I had another point, and
in Texas, they don't do the custody time. In Texas, it's set at 10% of your income per kid.
Gotcha.
But it can't go beyond 50% of your income.
And by the way, happy Memorial Day. And so there's that to do.
I don't want to remember all that. Don't tell me that.
One other thing I've had with military is, so income is, they deduce it as any way it's derived. So sometimes you get, the extra housing expenses. I had a guy that lived in Japan. I think that's where it was. And he got all this, the military paid for him to live off base. And so but that was income. So his income was astronomical, even though it was to take care of, benefits or housing and whatnot. And then he was, out of town all the time. So he had like 0% custody. And that could really be bad. So military people, I don't know what to do about that other than you're just screwed.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, same with truck drivers, man. If you're over the road truck driver, you get a divorce. You like custody. I didn't go over the road until I realized I was never going to get to see my kids. And then I was just like, well, I'm already a truck driver. I'm not getting to see my kids. I might as well just go make as much money as I can.
Let me ask you this. So Justin, you're still involved in some of this, so I imagine you're able to see the kids. Tommy, has anything changed since they've gotten older?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, somewhat. I don't deal with their mothers at all anymore.
Yeah.
So I deal with the kids directly. They work full. They're all working now. So you know how it is. Like the cat's in the cradle, and so it's that kind of situation. My youngest son is about to start college. He just graduated this year. He wants to take some of his basics there at Lone Star in the Houston area, Katy area. Then move down here and live with us for a while. learn how to raise chickens, a little bit about plant and gardening, and go to college here at a college here. So I have a relationship with my kids. Some relationships are rougher than others. I mean, but that's life. And that's just what you got to deal with as a parent anyway. So like, whatever.
Justin, all good with you?
It's been, so I started a new job about a little over a year and a half ago, working at the distillery that I work at. And I work nights now. I do 4 days on and 4 days off. And with the way our schedule used to be, where she had on Monday, Tuesday, I had on Wednesday, Thursday, and then we alternated weekends. I don't work Monday through Friday. So like, some like this upcoming week, like I'm off until Friday. So this week I will work Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And then next week I'll work Saturday, Sunday, Monday, too. Like, my schedule changes every week. So the having them every Wednesday, Thursday, and then alternating Friday, Saturday, Sunday was really not working. So when we got into the summer last year, with them being out of school and everything, I said, how about we just, like, I have them on the days that I'm off and you have them on the days that I work. That way we're not having to do this, like shuffling them back and forth between your work schedule and when I'm scheduled to have them. And then I'm not seeing them on the days that I work, that I have them, because I got to sleep during the day because I work all night. So, we agreed that we were going to do that for the summer last year. And then as the school year approached, I talked to the kids. I was like, would y'all, if this schedule has worked for you, would you mind if I talk to your mother about, we just do this from now on? Like, you're here on the days I'm off. You're with her on the days that I work. And she actually said, yes, that's perfect. That works great for me. So we've been able to make that a whole thing work. The dumbass in the other room back there that you keep seeing move in and out of screen, he got in some trouble at school. I recommended that we pull him out of school, put him on a homeschool curriculum for the rest of the year, try to have a like a hard reset on life and get him straightened out, and then let him go back in the fall. She was very agreeable to that. So yeah, things have been going really good. And I have plenty of time with the kids. Like, with him doing the homeschool thing, I'm with him pretty much all day, every day that I have him, which is a blessing and a curse. Right. God love him. He gets on my every last fucking nerve. There's the peanut gallery. And then my daughter does wrestling and, theater and all kinds of stuff, and tennis. And so she keeps me running nonstop on the days that I've got her with all of her extracurriculars and stuff. So I get plenty of time with my kids, and it's good. Like, it's good quality time, because the days that I have them, I don't have to work. So like, I just have them on days that I'm going to get to spend time with them. And it's been really good. I know my schedule is definitely not for everyone. The whole, working 12-hour nights, 4 days a week, and then being off 4 straight days, and I average about 3.5 hours of sleep a day. Like, I don't know that anybody else or everybody else could do that, but it works really good for us, and it works really good for me. And being able to have that has been really, really good. And like, we all get along a lot better now that we've got a good routine like this, and get plenty of time. So that's because, like I said earlier, like, there was a stretch where it was pretty rough and nobody really got along very well. Like, my wife and I tried, and it was just like, every time we'd try to be nice, we'd get met with hostility. And we ended up, once we got through everything, now we've all got good relationships, and it's all working really well. But man, it was a rough patch there for a while.
Well, I'm glad to hear all that, and kind of the reason why, and I feel bad for some of the Tommy's gone through. But the hope is that as the kids get older, that, if you're the steady, normal person, that they will come to realize at some point, okay, Dad maybe wasn't as crazy and bad as Mom had made him out to be.
I try not to be.
No. And I think, you come across, I don't know you that well, but you come across as a pretty reasonable guy. So, and I, the same way with my life and whatnot. And sometimes when you're in these situations, it's like with anything, it's the most important thing that you have custody right now. I understand, guys work on this, and maybe the order isn't in your favor, and I get them, they get very impatient, and I'm just like, look, 6 months, 3 months, maybe a year, we can turn this thing around. Sometimes I've had people with, some bad shit going on, and they've got to get their lives together. And those ones that push back and they don't listen, they are in that same cycle for 2 years, 5 years. I've had guys turn themselves around because they go, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to focus on doing the right thing. I'm going to do the visitation, even though it's supervised, but I'm going to be there all the time. And next thing you know, they've turned it around. And in the scheme of, your kids with this person 18 years, 0 to 18, that you've got to, you're under that jurisdiction of the court. It may be some frustrating 6 months, years here and there, but in the long scheme, you may turn it around or have actually a relationship with them the rest of your lives. And it sucks to miss those early times, but that's kind of the way it is. And especially if people get involved in domestic violence, this is also a dirty little secret of the Title IV of the child support services stuff. To get the money, they've also got to comply with domestic violence issues that the federal government is put out there. So if they've got to follow those rules with the domestic violence, which means you got domestic violence restraining orders that you could get your guns taken away, and they hand those out like candy. So that's a problem. And if you don't follow that, and if you get in that problem, you can really just ruin your life and your kids. So just the last thing of advice, don't do anything stupid. Don't get involved. If you do get a court order against you, obey it as well as you can, because it's like probation. You'll be screwed over and over, and maybe get some legal advice, but that's it.
I think we covered a lot, and I think it's a lot of good stuff for any guys going through this kind of thing.
Yeah. It's a rough patch, man. And when I was young going through this stuff, if I would have had like something like this to listen to and kind of, all right, well, these guys kind of understand, I could reach out to them. I could speak to them. We can email, DM, whatever, back and forth. I would have made a big difference in the way that I pursued it, because I would have at least I would have had some sort of support. My parents didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. I was like,
my parents didn't know shit about the divorce process or anything like that. They'd been married for forever, and my dad's parents both were married for forever until my granddad passed away. Like my mom's parents got divorced, but that was back in I don't know, the 60s or 70s. Like she was young, and it didn't.
My parents got divorced when I was 2 years old. They got remarried when I was 6. They had no idea what the hell was going on.
It's tough. It's tough to find. I didn't have anybody to reach out to. That's why I just started doing research and digging into what's going on and trying to find out everything that I could. So.
Yeah, you knew the internet existed. I had no clue. I didn't even. I honestly I had never been on the internet before 2012. I had no clue what was going on. People would say that. I was like, what is this? Some kind of what's
this World Wide Web they're talking about?
Yeah, like the world wide what? No, I got to go to work. I don't care.
I just got a flip phone. Now there's the internet.
I didn't even have a flip phone until 2012.
Okay. That's what I'm saying.
I didn't know what the hell was going on, man.
I definitely can speak for myself, and probably for these guys too. Like, if you're going through some stuff like this, feel free to reach out to us.
Absolutely.
There are other resources out there too. Like, find somebody to talk to and get as much information as you can, because being informed is the best first step you can take towards making sure that you're covering your ass, that you're getting yourself taken care of in terms of being able to provide for your kids, being able to actually provide for yourself. There's a lot of tough situations out there, and there are a lot of horror stories as far as the family court system goes, but there are ways to keep yourself from being a victim of that if you just know who to talk to and how to protect yourself from some of that. So if you got shit going on, feel free to hit us up and let us know what's going on. And then pretty sure this will be coming out on Tommy's stream and Tyler's stream, so you will have access to this all over the place. Guys, thank you very much. This has been very informative and interesting, hopefully not just for people who are going through this stuff, but it's been very informative and interesting for me too, listening to the legal side of it, and to to the complete polar opposite of my experience with it, from Tommy's side of it, and kind of getting a feel for how this is very different for people all across the country. So, being able to cover your own ass is very important in all of this. Guys, give your plugs and we will call it a show.
I'll go. I'll let Tommy go last. Save the best for last. Tyler Janke. Just you can find me on Twitter. Just last thing I'll say here is, you may live in Capistan in your head, but the real world will hit you in the ass. So you got to know the rules to the game, and unfortunately, family laws might be part of it. So I'm going to do a pinned tweet of my Substack. I'll pin it up there. So TYLERJANKE if you guys want to check that out, and we'll keep doing stuff like this.
Yep, I'm Tommy Salmons, year 0 at the Libertarian Institute. You can find me there, libertarianinstitute.org/year-0/ or Substack, TommySalmons.com. That's the best ways to find me. I'm on Twitter too, but yeah, whatever. I don't take that place too seriously. If you come there looking for a serious take, you're in the wrong spot.
And you can find me on Twitter at jcamp1521, and that's where I post all my shit. And I've got a Linktree link on there as well in my profile that you can find all the different places you can get all my content. Guys, thanks again. This has been great, and I will catch y'all later.
Thanks.